So, quick, I'm really pleased to have Frances Allen from Denny's, Cami Dunaway from Kidzania, Marianne Fitzmaurice-Riley from Amex Open as our first three panelists today. Round of applause for them. All right, time to wow us about engagement. So maybe we'll start with maybe a 2-minute or less introduction, quick background about yourselves.
Okay, morning everybody. Thrilled to be here. My name's Frances Allen, and I'm currently, for the last 3 years, been serving as Chief Marketing Officer for Denny's. Prior to that, I was with Dunkin' Donuts. I really love these American iconic brands, even though you can probably hear a slight English accent. I say slight, I've been here 17 years. Previously, Hong Kong, and before that, not surprisingly, London. So 3 continents, multiple different businesses, Pepsi, Sony Ericsson, and now the new love of my professional life, the restaurant business.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cami Dunaway, and first I'd like to thank Pete for that awesome performance by Cyndi Lauper. I told him I'm excited. I think my clout score is going to go up this week because I got so many comments on my picture with Cyndi Lauper, so I'm really excited about that. And my background, I've been with Pepsi in the Frito-Lay division for a number of years. Then I was at Yahoo. Then I was at Nintendo. And now I'm with a small company that I'm very passionate about called Kidzania. And I'll look forward to telling you a little bit more about the company and what we're doing to engage kids and teachers and adults.
Good morning, everyone. Marianne Fitzmaurice-Riley. I haven't moved around quite as much. I have been at American Express for 23 years. Before that, I was at Deloitte when it was Deloitte Haskins & Sells many years ago. I have spent most of my career at American Express on the consumer side, but the last 5 years in Open. Open is the #1 payment card issuer for small businesses. We've been doing that for about 25 years. I've held various positions within marketing before being CMO or managing the customer side. I was actually responsible on the consumer side for new customer acquisition. So thrilled to be here.
Excellent. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. First question I'd throw out. How do you actually define customer engagement and measure it? Whoever wants to answer.
Sure, I can start. Customer engagement to me is really about how relevant you are to your customers and how they perceive you in terms of what you're delivering to them as customers. So I think the easiest, we do measure customer engagement. The most obvious measurement, we're very data-driven at American Express, so there's many metrics that we look at, but I would say #1 is how much they're actually using the card. So what are they spending on the card, but importantly, what share do we have of what is plasticizable? So beyond things like rent, what they could actually put on plastic. How much are we capturing of what they could actually spend? But then importantly, because Open's mission is actually to help businesses do more business. So we want to be more than just considered a card issuer, but we actually do a lot to help them to grow their business and meet their needs. So we do a lot of research around what are the needs that they have as business owners and where do they need help. So we also measure brand relevance. So how much are we delivering on meeting those needs? Not just for customers, but also for our prospects. So how are we doing in the overall marketplace around the brand? And delivering on that promise of helping businesses do more business. So, and we measure NPS and refer to a friend. So how well are we doing in convincing them to tell their friends about us as a brand? So those are some of the key metrics that we measure.
Anyone else have any insights?
Yeah, I think for us it's about So what we're trying to always do is change some kind of behavior, and really to do that, you've got to cut through, as Marianne says, to the brand relevance. Make sure that your brand has what a role it plays in their lives. But it's about eliciting some kind of response. It's about creating an emotion, a feeling, giving them some kind of opportunity to create, to share, and to bring some added value to their world. So we don't measure, we have a brand tracker that measures just how involved people are with the brand. And then on social media, we use things like YouGov to see just how feelings are trending towards the brand. Those are really the primary measures for us. And of course, how many people actually come to our restaurants and sit in our seats.
So for me, first I'll tell you a little bit about what the Kidzania experience is like. So we're location-based entertainment. We create these indoor cities for kids. Kids come up to an airline ticket counter, they get a boarding pass, they get a check for our currency, 50 Kidzos, and then they go into the city that we create. And they cash their check, and then they can make decisions about spending their money. They can go rent a car, they can go and go to a health club, go to the disco, go to get their hair done. But pretty soon, they run out of money, and then they have to go to work. So they can take a job in our hospital or in our police station or in one of our factories. So it's a really wonderful way to teach kids about careers and also teach them about things like financial literacy, problem solving. And so I've got two key audiences. I've got the kids and I've got the adults, either the teachers or the parents who are bringing the children. And when I think about engagement, I think about it as someone loving my brand enough that they'll change their relationship status. So for the kids, we actually have a former loyalty program, and they go from being tourists of our city to being citizens. And then I'm able to really monitor how many visits they make, how often they repeat, how many activities they do, in very great ways of truly gauging the depth of their engagement and changes in their engagement. And then with parents and with teachers, what I'm looking is to create advocates for Kidzania. And so the things that are important to me there are things like how many people are posting YouTube videos, how many people are writing good reviews on TripAdvisor, how many people are including us in their blog posts, how many people are really getting engaged with our Facebook community such that they're commenting, they're posting. So those are the kinds of things to me that demonstrate this willingness to say, hey, I'm in relationship with your brand. I really want to be part of what you're trying to create.
Another question, this whole issue of customer engagement between digital and the physical, how do you plan and execute and kind of manage that? I know it's a broad question, but love your thoughts on that.
Well, I'll take that one. And actually for us, physical is a huge opportunity for us to engage with customers. So we have 1,700 restaurants across the country, and the actual experience that any guest gets in a restaurant completely outweighs anything that we might do on the marketing side. So if it's a good experience and they recommend to their family and friends, that's a win. If it's a bad experience, you can lose that customer for life, no matter how clever we've been on social media or how great that new product promotion was. So the actual physical space is critical for us, and the relationship with the server and the customer is critical for us. So I just came back from the West Coast. We've been out and doing workshops with the servers to retrain them on actually guiding customers through the menu, just making that whole experience better. So marketing gets very heavily involved in that. We can obviously make or break the server's patter, if you like, their speech by creating overcomplicated products. I'll give you an
The copy or the scripts that they're trained on for
we
marketing?
work with the operations services side to do that. So I'll give you an example. We rolled out new coffee. You know, we repositioned the brand as America's Diner a couple of years ago, and of course, the one thing a diner has to have is a great cup of coffee, as wasn't up to standard. And we rolled out new coffee. We're typical marketers. We overthought it. We gave it their signature diner roast. And we wanted them to say that as they offered their customers a choice of signature diner roast or diner dark roast. And it was just messing them up. And so instead they just said, "You want a cup of coffee?" no choice at all. So we just said, okay, we're going to do mild and bold, because those describe the flavors. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to, practice in the mirror and learn that speech. And when we announced those at this workshops, there was a spontaneous applause. So, it's really important that we bear that in mind. But, also on the physical space is the actual environment. So when we introduced the America's Diner, we wanted to make sure that we took that all the way through the organization into the restaurants themselves. And we started with a flagship store that we opened in Vegas in November of last year. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to tell you about that. So first of all, this Vegas store has an interactive photo booth. So what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. But it's all part of positioning Denny's as the original social network, which is where we think our heritage is. And the other thing it has is a wedding chapel. And
Nice.
no trip to Vegas is complete without a walk down the aisle. So we have this wedding chapel. We had our first wedding there 2 weeks ago. Wonderful couple, Nancy and Steve Keller, actually tied the knot at the restaurant. And it's one of those things that it fits really well with our brand, because people have been getting married, believe it or not, in Denny's for years, and they have such a great relationship with the brand. They either, they studied there for their finals, they went there after their parties, they went there as kids, and they have a real relationship with the brand. And often we've been asked to perform marriages there. So it's not such a bizarre fit, and actually it enhances that emotional connection with the brand. But we had, so it's an ordinary couple that we chose from a number of letters we'd received. And we got over 550 media stories, blog posts, you name it, from this one event. It was really magical. So I focus a lot on engaging on the physical level, and then on the digital side, we do a ton with social media and original content, where they're creating new branded content, Facebook, obviously, Twitter, all the usual suspects. So I'll stop, give my fellow panelists a chance to talk.
Similar to Francis, certainly our physical experience is where most of the organizational energy is. And so one of the things that I really challenge people to do is to think more holistically about the whole consumer journey and how people were engaging with us before the visit and then after the visit as well. And one of the things, and we have owned and operated, and we have franchisees around the world. And a few years ago, our franchisee websites, most of them were heavy flash. They were really very kid-like. If you went on them, you would actually think that we had digital environments, not physical environments. And so helping our franchisees understand that the primary audience on the web really were the adults, the parents, and the teachers who needed information to plan their visit, to make it easy to purchase tickets, easy to just know all of their questions about what a visit was going to be like. And so really streamlining that process and helping people prior to a visit. And then also thinking about ways that we can deepen engagement after a visit. So that's where our loyalty program has been particularly helpful. And now we track all of this activity with parent permission that the children are engaged in. And we can do very cool things like after the child leaves Kidzania, they can go online and see a digital resume of all of their activity. Are they doing things that are sort of in the health and science? Are they doing things that are more cultural? And have this resume that they can share with their parents, with their grandparents. So I think it's constantly challenging ourselves to think not only about the face-to-face experience, but about what can you do to extend and enhance that experience both before and afterwards.
So I think as we think about physical and digital, that there's been such a push to digital over the years that we have to be careful and make sure that we're marrying the physical world and the digital world. And particularly as you think about mobile and those experiences. So actually one of the things that we created probably now about 10 years ago was Open Forum, which was taking what was a great experience in the physical world. We had something called Inside the Entrepreneurial Mind. And it was where our president of Open was interviewing iconic small business owners like Richard Branson and Bobby Brown. And it would be at a venue like this or a larger auditorium space, and there was such a demand that we were basically not able to meet the demand. So we said, let's create this site where you could go and actually watch it online. So that was a great example of moving from physical to the digital world. But now it's sort of a movement to take those digital experiences, so the social interaction within Open Forum, to now the physical space. So we do a lot in trade shows, and we bring some of our speakers and some of our bloggers from Open Forum to speak at and meet small business owners at these trade shows. We also created Small Business Saturday, which is probably the best example of creating a movement online that created a physical shopping day for small businesses. So if you don't know what Small Business Saturday is, it's basically small businesses' answer to Black Friday. So it is the day after Black Friday during that key shopping weekend of Thanksgiving, where we realized that we had this opportunity of, we have over 100 million consumers and cardholders who actually want to support small businesses. We have small merchants who accept the card. We have small businesses within the open space who have a card. And we have social media, which was basically the ability to get the word out there in a very viral way. So the first Small Business Saturday in 2010 was actually the fastest growing Facebook page up until that point. And we had over 2.5 million likes within Facebook. And that spread the word and got people out, feet on the street, to be shopping. And now we've really, the Small Business Saturday toolkit that we've leveraged for small businesses, we're realizing that we've got to get it into the community. So we're leveraging chambers of commerce and different, Amoeba, who is a group that supports local shopping, getting those physical toolkits out into the marketplace and encouraging business owners to go on and use the social toolkit. So you can create a Facebook page, you can create banners, you can market yourselves, so basically using the power of small businesses to market themselves in a way that large businesses can. So that was really a great example of marrying the physical and the digital world to create a great marketing program for small businesses.
Have any of you had any problems? So I heard 3 great analysis or whatever stories. Do you have problems with being able to have the right, or not the right, to be able to have influence over these conversations sometimes? Are people defensive in other groups, customer service, ops, stores? Is there a constant battle, or have you gotten a pretty good place with these other organizations? And we'll edit this out of the video if you want.
So I don't know that I wouldn't say it's a constant battle. I mean, I think if you American Express is a large matrixed organization. So similar to, as Francis was talking about, influencing the conversation, marketing really needs to guide the way you want to represent the brand. Right. And I think particularly for Open, small business owners don't have a lot of time for marketing speak. And in fact, we'll say, don't bullshit a bullshitter. We talk to us like we want to be talked to. And so that is really, but that's really where we've moved from a customer service standpoint anyway. So I think we're pretty aligned. Our customer care professionals no longer have a script. So it's not you're reading from a script that we have to hand to you. It's creating the conversation and creating the language that is authentic. So we are creating that sort of authentic speak, but we're training our representatives to be able to have a real conversation and not to be reading from a script. But you have to have buy-in around the mission. So the mission of helping businesses do more business, if you don't have buy-in to that, then that's where I think it falls apart. But you have to really be aligned around that mission and get everyone to buy in. So I don't know that it's, you know, it's sometimes a struggle around ownership, who owns the marketing program, who owns the customer. The reality is we all own the customer. So particularly for small businesses, many of our small businesses also have a consumer card. They are also merchants who accept the card. And what we need to do is recognize those customers who have dual relationships and speak to them in that way. And that's really what we're moving towards. So the boundaries are not as defined as they used to be.
I think the old adage, walk a mile in my shoes, is a really helpful principle. I loved Frances's story about the coffee. And I have to work especially closely with operations. And it's so easy to overcomplicate things when what you really need to do if you're going to create the most powerful experiences is boil them down to their essence that, in my case, a 19-year-old supervisor in Kidzania can feel comfortable really owning and representing. And one of the things that I do is make sure that I spend time working in our facilities, not just doing market tours and going through and kind of checking and looking, but actually 4 times a year working, putting on the polo shirt, putting on the khakis, and going and working at our airport ticket counter or on one of our factory lines.
Will you tell us the next time you're going to do that? Will you give us a
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can see me with my hairnet.
I want to picture that.
But I just think that doing that both builds credibility within organizations because they see that you're willing to really go the extra mile to understand what they do. And inevitably, some of my best strategic ideas come from those times when I'm really getting hands-on into the business in that way.
I would agree. Credibility is key and buy-in. So when we developed the America's Diner positioning, we made sure that we collaborated, involved, engaged every single department in the organization and our franchisees. We're 90% franchised. We have about 276, that's an exact number, 276 franchisees who also need to buy in to that positioning. So we spent a lot of time socializing why, introducing them to the real inner emotions of our heavy users and how we had tapped into how their relationship with the brand, with America's Diner. And then we actually had all the officers of the company, so across all the different disciplines, develop the mission, vision, and the value statements of the company based on that positioning. So by the time we launched the campaign, everyone through the organization was bought in and aligned behind America's Diner. And I think part of the success of that and the speed with which we're able to do that is because it was so true to the brand's DNA. I could almost sense a huge sigh of relief that we had finally identified what the brand was really all about, and it felt very real and authentic. So it wasn't a hard sell at all. And now it's just a case of methodically going through every part of the organization and making sure that every consumer touch point we have reflects that America's Diner-ness. And I think that there are still some areas where it's harder to influence than others, but it's a little more about muscle memory, I think, than resistance. So, if you've been doing something the same way for 10 years, and then somebody comes along and says, oh, by the way, I'm the new CMO, and this is America's Diner, and I want to be involved I want you to think about me when you're designing how the counter looks in the restaurant. And it just takes a little time for them to go, oh, yeah, I better go see what Frances thinks about this, or I better go and see what the Director of Insights thinks about the way that I'm moving here. So it's just encouraging an organization really to change their behavior is as much breaking habits as it is resistance.
I agree with that. I think by nature, marketers tend to be impatient people, tend to be people who really like change, like things that are dynamic. And I'm constantly reminding young marketers on my team that we have to take the time to teach, because we all want to create, but in order to get the rest of the organization on board and in order to create these amazing experiences, it takes a lot of time educating internally and just bringing people along with you and explaining for the 10th time what the benefit is of what you're doing. And if you don't take that time, programs usually tend to fail.
That's right.
Any questions from the audience? Kyle.
Hi, we talked a lot yesterday about the delineation between a loyalist and a fan, and that there was a difference between those two. And I loved Cammie's answer around they go from a tourist to a citizen. And I was just wondering if you each have nomenclature that you use for that difference between somebody who just frequents you versus someone who loves you, and what those one or two things are that you do that you feel like are the tipping point to push somebody to that.
Well, I would say that the most important thing for us, or the most important distinction on a fan, is somebody who is prepared to recommend. So we look at intent to return scores, and we look at intent to recommend. You know, I might go back somewhere over and over again, but I might not feel quite so comfortable about saying, hey, gotta go and visit that Denny's at the corner of it and it, right? I might not feel quite so proud of my choices on that front. So any customer that's prepared to recommend is an incredibly valuable fan for us. So loyalists are heavy users that have a high intent to return score. Fans are people that have a high intent to recommend it. And really, that is about the overall guest experience. So what we're trying to do is, by being the work that we do in social media and in traditional media, is trying to make the brand cool again, trying to make us of today rather than 60 years ago, and really trying to find a lot of ways, particularly through social, that we provide opportunities for millennials to share and be proud of what they're sharing. That's going to make them more comfortable to recommend. Those are our distinctions.
So we actually refer to our loyalists as top clients. And that's based on what they are spending with us, and their market share with us. And those top clients actually receive a client manager. And I recently had a panel that I was moderating for some of our top customers. And one of the customers actually said, you know, I became a card member, and I got a call from this guy who said, you know, hi, I'm George from American Express, and I'd like to speak to you. And he said, oh, you know, of course I got nervous. Why is American Express calling me? And I called this guy back, and he said, you know, I'm George, and I'm assigned to you as a top customer, and I'd like to help you to figure out what I can do to help you grow your business. And that was a wow moment for him. And you know, then George is sitting in the audience, and now they have this relationship. But it's also for our top clients, what they say about us is not, oh, I like you because I was able to use my card to make that purchase. When I ask our top clients why they love us, they will say things like, because I know you have my back. Because when I was in trouble during the recession and I called you, you made some concessions for me. You gave me, and you extended the time that I could pay you back. You increased my credit line when I needed you to. You helped me to figure out how to find a new vendor. You helped me with getting my supplier to accept the card. So they were doing things that go above and beyond what they would expect from us. I think then if you think about fans, and you sort of think about the nomenclature of fans as being those who follow you through social media, and we do a lot in social media. particularly because we have a lot of content within Open Forum, and we push that out through social media. So we have fans both on the small business side and on the consumer side. We leverage the fans on the consumer side to promote businesses, help businesses to attract those fans to them. And we also have conversations with our fans to try and understand them and understand who are truly what we would call advocates. So are they then talking about us in a way where they will refer their followers to friends? So I think it's similar to what Francis talked about. It's sort of you have your top customers or your loyalists, and then you have your fans that you engage to refer other customers, to hopefully spread the word about your brand, and try to understand them and engage with them more to understand who they are and are they loyalists.
I really like using the power of language to talk about your segments and even internally for people to acknowledge your most valuable customers. And for us, actually, after you become a citizen, you have a chance to become part of our Congress, which is the most distinguished level. And our Congress kids serve year terms in each of our facilities and are really our VIPs. And they're the ones who we seek counsel from. They give us ideas. We run new programs by them. But they know that they are really super, super special because they're engaging with us in such a deep and meaningful way.
How do you guys, how do you handle, what role do you play in this, and just kind of your perspective on this whole issue of when fans or customers are unhappy? Either the traditional route of letters and calls through lambasting you on, Twitter and Facebook. How do you kind of handle that within your businesses and get buy-in on how you do react to it?
Well, as you can imagine, as a restaurant that's open 24/7, there are things that happen in our restaurant all the time. And I'm actually in charge of crisis communication. So that means that often Friday nights, Sunday mornings are a stream of, have you seen the posting that's going on Facebook right now? And so we have got quite a thorough process in place about how we communicate between ourselves, how we get to the facts, how we almost immediately post something on Facebook, even if we don't know all the facts, and just say we're looking into it. And we always thank our customers for letting us know that it happened, that their view of something that happened. We try and just be as transparent and as open as we can, because you can no longer control the conversation anymore. And if you don't jump in and calm things down, it can just get completely out of control. So we're dealing with that all the time. And then if we get customer letters, I personally will reply to consumers that call me or email me, and nearly always, of course, the customer's always right, and you just hope that they've managed to get that off their chest, and if we send them a coupon, that they'll most likely come back, and hopefully the experience will be better next time.
That's amazing. So you actually write?
I will write personally, and it's incredible. Sometimes some of my angriest customers I pick up the phone to, and immediately people they completely calm down. They're overwhelmed that a C-level executive has actually called them and cares enough about their opinion, and almost then you've won them back.
Right.
And any call that comes into the customer care line, at some point, somebody will call that customer. So usually the head of operations for that market will actually call the customer. We take customer complaints very, very seriously.
One of the things that we've also had to spend a lot of time on is training our employees about the use of social, because we have these young employees who are very passionate about our brand. They're great advocates. and yet a lot of them are 19, 20, 21 years old and would think nothing about posting on their Facebook, wild night last night, really blah, 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 just stuff you wouldn't want to see. And then the next post be, great day working at Kidsania. And we're working with kids, so you just can't do that. But what we found is that it's all about the training and all about making people aware and assuming positive intent. And for most of them, it's really just a matter of helping them to understand that you can't be showing these two different sides of yourself on the same page. And if you're going to use your personal page to talk about your job, which is great, and we love people doing that, then you also need to make sure that anything you post about your personal life, you would be happy telling a parent of one of the children. So it's really been an interesting and I think an ongoing piece of work to try and figure out how to navigate through that.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, as a service brand, you need to respond quickly, and you need to have escalation paths. So particularly for our top clients, because they have a client manager, that's who they're going to call. That person can't necessarily solve every problem. If they got stopped at a point of sale, it could be a fraud issue, a risk issue. They have to know who to call and have the escalation paths, and we need to be able to handle it immediately. The second is that we need to be consistent in the way that we are addressing the problems, and and recognize when we make mistakes. I mean, going back to when we went through the recession, we had every bank, every payment issuer had to survive during that time. And it was a challenging time, and there were businesses that were in trouble, and we had to cut back their lines in some cases. And the relationship that we have with small businesses, because they actually do believe that we helped, many businesses will say, you helped me to build my business, you were the first one to give me a card. They were personally hurt when we cut their lines. And they actually said, it's not so much that you did it, I get that you did it, but it's the way that you did it and that you didn't inform me beforehand. You didn't make me feel like you really understood what you were doing to my business. So it was important for us to say, I'm sorry, you're right, we hurt you and I'm sorry, and we should have handled it differently. And businesses really appreciated that. So one of the things we learned around that was that we had to look more closely at the trends of what we were hearing from customers. And now that you have these channels, you're in these conversations in social media, and now obviously those conversations have a life of their own. So we needed to understand what were the trends, and we created what we call the Customer Advisory Council, which is a group of senior level executives who get together and look at the complaints, because we have so many channels, so you have to collect all that feedback on a regular basis, look at the trends, and then understand what we need to address. So what's the underlying problem that you need to fix? So obviously address the problem that the customer is calling you or writing you about immediately, and fix it or apologize, but then look at what's the underlying cause and how can we fix it so it doesn't happen again.
Good. We're about out of time, so one final question, if that's okay, in 1 minute or less, if possible. But is there any lesson learned, something in the last year or two that you thought for sure was going to work that didn't, or didn't think was going to work that would be of benefit for this group?
Well, I would say in terms of consumer engagement, a lot of what we're talking about is really in the social space, and we have done we've done very well in that space, and we actually have a clout score as high as Starbucks, which is still quite amazing to me. And one of the things that we've done though is we have never rented likes. So we have never, the fans that we have on Facebook, the people that we engage in that space, are people who genuinely like the brand. They are not people that we lured over with an offer of a free Grand Slam. So it actually.
I would like you for a free Grand Slam.
We all would like a free Grand Slam. And that's the point. We would get millions of people as fans
Right.
on Facebook, and they would not want to engage in a conversation. So I would say that's a key factor that we've learned that is actually made us very popular on social media or driven our clout score. The other thing, and this is going to sound very silly, but we have seen huge success with what we call a food, cats, and babies strategy. And just posting things that people want to share. You know, great pictures of food, great pictures of kittens doing cute things, pictures of babies. You know, people just want to share that stuff like crazy. I mean, it blows my mind, but it works.
Good.
So I would say, personal lesson, I've moved from very large companies having big teams to a very small company. And it's been an incredible blessing. And one of the lessons I've learned is the importance of your personal engagement. And it's easy when you're in a big organization to sort of get multiple layers away from your customer or your consumer. And I had great conversations yesterday with David talking about moderating his own focus groups, or Michelle talking about being out in trade shows, really listening herself to what her customers had to say. And so that's been the biggest lesson for me, is that far from feeling penalized by not having a big research team now, I actually feel empowered because it's causing me to spend more time face-to-face with my end user.
So I think I touched on a bit earlier, but don't fall so in love with new terms or new channels or the new technology. I mean, social is very important. We talked a bit earlier about big data, and the term big data is everybody's talking about, but it's no different than what we've been doing all along. We're a data-driven company. And we use data, but we need to use data responsibly, and we need to use it to give relevant offers and communications to our customers. We also need to listen to them and understand when they don't want to be driven directly to the social space or our website. And we learned that a lot through Small Business Saturday, where the word was spread on the consumer side through social, but then we provided all these social tools for businesses online, and they don't have the time to do the do-it-yourself. They want to be handheld, and there's a reason why only about half of them are actually using social channels. So we thought we had this great opportunity to help them to go social, and that's great, but to really get them engaged, it had to be very grassroots, very local, and feet on the street. So you have to match the feet on the street along with the social channels. So it's really being nimble and adjusting over time. Good. Based on the feedback of customers.
Well, listen, I want to thank you three very much. Very good session. Thank you very much.